Hi, everybody. Welcome to Remembering Your Oneness. I am Xane Daniel, and this is
Monika, Kupiec.
what is our tagline? Where we know everything.
And so do you.
All right.
You're getting better at this.
Oh, am I getting better? I'm glad you think so. I think this week has been interviewing lots of people for the Higher Self Expo. So I'm in front of the camera sometimes multiple times a day. So maybe that's just getting me more comfortable or something. I don't know.
It could be. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah.
It could just be my presence that you just feel more comfortable.
Oh, right. I bet you that's it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yep. So I am an intuitive painter and I do energy healing work as well. And today we're going to be talking about a little bit about yin yoga, was what I practice, and about unworthiness and how both of them link together.
Right. Yep. And so I'm an energy healer also, and I have a YouTube channel and I produce 1 or 2 videos a week. And this week is all about unworthiness. So we generally tie our theme into that, plus whatever Monika brings to the table, in this case, yoga, which is great. And then I also run at the Higher Self Expo, which is coming up on January 23rd. It's a 9-hour free expo where I'm saying it like that because Monika said, oh, it's free. She didn't know. So making sure everybody knows it's free. It's broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. And then you can always go to the YouTube channel or to the Facebook page and watch the past expos. There's been 2 already, and we're going on to our 3rd one now. So that's part of what I do. I also teach a class on helping people remove negative entities for life. And there's others. Oh yeah, and I make and write my own comic book series called Righteous, about a mass spiritual awakening. So just a few things. That's all.
Only a few?
Yeah. Then this podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. His self, what is it? Self Expo. What is it called?
The Higher Self Expo.
Higher Self Expo. It's
Yeah.
good to be true to be free. So that's why I was surprised.
Too good to be true. Okay, yeah, I like that. Yeah, and we've got some big names. I think each time we get bigger and bigger names, which is kind of fun as it expands. Like yesterday, I was interviewing Lori Ladd, who's really had a meteoric rise to fame over just like the last year or 2. So that was really fun. It was fun to have that conversation. So each time we're just going to get bigger and bigger.
So do you feel like you learn something new about yourself when you're interviewing these people, or that something new like awakens per se?
Absolutely. All kinds of new things happen when I get to do that, because these people are amazing, right? They're all their own, they're, really like leaders of their particular areas. So whether it's astrology or it's energy healing or whatever, it's always insightful. And I'm one of those people that use like common language. I don't use a lot of metaphysical terminology or spiritual terminology. So that's one thing I definitely learned. It seems like everybody's like, they're using some new thing. And I go, hey, you know what? Could you help me out and just tell me what that means? And let's see what we can learn. And usually I learn some new stuff each time. So that's pretty cool.
So then from the 2 years that you've already hosted this, is there one person or a few people that like stand out with their gifts that you were just like mind blown that you've never heard of this before, that you would like to share?
Oh my gosh, probably. First of all, I want to say that it's actually only been going on for a year. We did our first one in May, our next one in September, and this one now in January. So this is our 3rd event in 1 year's time. But yeah, I mean, every time there's been amazing things. And it's funny that I'm the host of this because I'm kind of terrible with remembering people's names. so there's been some amazing like vocalists who can, hit these incredible notes and stuff. And you're just like, wow, this would be beautiful whether you subscribe to the notion that you're receiving energy healing or not. So those are the types of things, like the performances really stand out to me. The ones that they could get up on stage for a general audience, for a mainstream audience, and the mainstream audience would be blown away. That's probably what I love
about it.
Yeah. Good speakers, really engaging, make you laugh, make you, have a great time while you're experiencing the learning or the healing. That always stands out to me too.
Great, that's awesome. So then to clarify, they just go to the website and then they subscribe to you, or they can find it as a live stream on your Facebook.
Yeah. So there's a Facebook page, a Higher Self Expo Facebook page, and there's a Higher Self Expo YouTube channel. And then there's the website right there that I have scrolling across the bottom of the screen now that you can go to and register. You're subscribed to a mailing list, and then you'll receive information about all the speakers, about the schedule and all that. So that's probably the best way to go.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good, because clearly you've been talking about it and I'm just like clueless about it.
Right. No, that's good. I'm glad. I mean, that's kind of what we
Other
do.
people are feeling like, what's this? Like, he talks about it, but I don't think we've like thoroughly like talked about it.
Right. Well,
And how awesome it is.
well, and we even kind of had this kind of idea in the beginning that we weren't going to really know each other that well, except for when we're online and on live. So this works out great. So we don't talk about this sort of stuff that often unless we're live. So
it makes it fun for the viewers and anyone around. So
right.
anyone who's listening in and wants to ask us a question, that can definitely help us out with getting to know ourselves and remember our oneness.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so let's use that as our segue, as our transition, remembering our oneness. When we feel unworthy, we are not remembering our oneness. It's pretty much that simple, right? Because if we consider ourselves, if we realize the truth that we are all one and that we have created this incredible existence together or as one, then if we look at ourselves as unworthy, then we're subscribing to separation. And we know that separation is just an illusion. We, as the oneness, created the idea of fabricated separation so that we could have all these unique and individual experiences. So just simply straight off the bat, if you feel unworthy, then you have forgotten your oneness. And so I could definitely see this incredible progress and realization when you can remember that oneness, you can accept that, you can move into that, and then there's nobody to feel that there's no way to feel that you're unworthy in that situation.
So I've definitely had a lot of unworthy issues, but one of the main ones I've always had was after like a breakup. I always feel that breakups kind of linger on to that feeling of unworthiness because you're being separated from love, or that feeling of love, or the connection with someone else. And obviously it takes time to heal a broken heart, but for me, it's always been the return to nature that has helped me to remember my oneness, or to remember my unity within myself, and that worthiness feeling. I feel like worthiness could also be like a trauma, because it could be something that has happened in our childhood that we are just unaware of, that it's still lingering within us. I actually had a really good release maybe about 3 or 4 years ago from one of my healers from Holland, and she did a lot of like fear releasings and also unworthiness. And I remember after her session, I started attracting like different men in my life, or just different people in my life that were obviously a little bit more higher vibrational. But also I was seeing my worth of being worthy of a deeper love or a deeper connection with someone, and also reconnecting myself with nature in a more deeper way of being able to listen to my intuition and hear my intuition within nature.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're totally right on. It usually starts at childhood when you've had some sort of an abuse situation or even a perceived abuse situation. And so what are you doing in that case? First of all, we're born as these perfect beings of light, and all we want to do is love, be loved, and explore. But then we discover that the world isn't all just about that. There's all kinds of things that are going on. And so when we are in an abuse situation, then the person who is abusing us is subscribing to a lower vibrational emotion, usually fear. So if we're even trying to be super high vibrational, even though we don't even realize we're trying to be that, we just are as children, then all of a sudden that is introduced to us in a way that now we take that on as well. And so now we have fear, we have worry, we believe that, wait a minute, why is this happening to me? Maybe I deserve it. Maybe I've earned it in my behavior or lack of correct behavior or whatever. And so we go into a state of judgment, and judgment, then that's the only way unworthiness occurs. Unworthiness in itself, the word is talking about whether you are worthy of something. And the only way to be able to do that, to determine that, is to say, okay, well, there's a dichotomy. There has to be a worthy and an unworthy. Well, how do we come to that conclusion? We have to judge the situation. And when we judge the situation, one thing that people don't talk about with judgment very much is that judgment is judging whether something is good or bad, right? Most of the time, we always just say, well, judgment means bad. Like we're judging something that is wrong. But actually, if we judge something is great and beautiful and wonderful, it's still judgment. Actually, the truth is that everything just is. And we judge whether the sunset is beautiful or a cloudy day is drab. We are deciding that through these little limited three-dimensional brains. So when we apply that to ourselves, we get to choose whether we see ourselves as these beautiful, amazing beings or as these unworthy beings that screws everything up and are all kinds of mistakes or whatever.
So obviously with judgment and unworthiness, there is a linkage to it, but because we are human and judgments are so easy to be made in any circumstance, whether it's just by someone else's appearance or like you just said, like a cloudy day or judging a sunset. I mean, I remember there's so many times where I don't go out to the beach to watch the sunset because I think like, oh, it's not going to be anything spectacular from the cloud. And I'm already making a judgment, so I'll stay in, and then I'll just feel like maybe I'll feel a little bit not like unworthy, but I'll feel like more sluggish, or I'll just feel a little bit more down because I actually didn't go out and like go watch the sunset, which is something that like raises my vibration. So it's definitely interesting how a judgment will first dictate that trigger for unworthiness or for your next following events.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is so true. And using judgment we use judgment as part of our, once again, I always talk about this, our evolutionary history. Like if you're in a tribe and somebody's making a whole lot of noise, then everybody else in the tribe judges them and says, stop making that noise because you're attracting the saber-toothed tigers, you idiot. And so we needed to be able to do that in order to survive. We have to judge ourselves so that we also aren't the one making the noise or whatever. And then we judge our tribe members so that we survive. And so that's another reason that we shouldn't beat ourselves up over judging. We shouldn't judge ourselves for judging because we come about it naturally.
Yeah. And then I also feel that these judgments or like these feelings of unworthiness or any type of emotions, they actually get stuck somewhere in your body. And I realized that is because when I do yoga, like especially yin yoga, so yin yoga is about holding a pose for about 3 to 5 minutes. So it helps you release like the certain knots or the toxins that are associated in that one area. But it's also releasing emotions because when I used to teach classes in person, like sometimes people would cry during a pose. And it's not because of the pain, but it's because they're shedding away all these different emotions. And for me, when I teach, it's more of like grounding yourself and like finding your breath and like really tuning into what emotions or what comes up in that moment. Because I feel like that moment is so vital to figure out what it is you need to unlock in order to be able to move forward and to forgive it. I think forgiveness is also a big key in feeling more worthy because it's really the internal forgiveness that will help the feeling of releasing the unworthiness.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to know a little bit more about yin yoga. There's all these different types of yoga, and I'm not as familiar with them at all. So can you break down a little bit about yin and maybe compare it to a couple of other ones?
Yeah, so I guess it's easier to describe the other ones first, and then I'll go to the yin one because it's kind of the complete opposite of all of them.
Okay.
The most common one now is hot yoga, which is you're kind of like in a sauna or a really hot room, and you're only doing a certain sequence of poses. So it's like a set one, A, B, C, D, and then you do it in a rotation. I personally can't do hot yoga because I think the heat just doesn't work with my body. And yoga is all about finding out with what works for you. So I've tried it maybe 3 or 4 times, and I always feel like I'm going to pass out. I've only had one instructor, and she's a really good friend of mine. She teaches really well because she makes you focus on your breath. And when I do yoga, I tend to close my eyes because that helps me tune into my body. But with hot yoga, you actually need to have your eyes open, which is why I think they have mirrors in the room, is for you to actually focus on yourself and like be aware of what you're physically doing. So that's hot yoga.
Hmm.
So hot yoga is also really good if like you just really want to sweat out your toxins, because obviously it's like in a sauna, which is healing. But I feel like there's certain blood types or certain bodies that the heat is just a little bit overwhelming.
Right.
That tends to be me. And all the people that I go to, they like, or all my other friends, they like love hot yoga. They think I'm slightly strange that I don't.
Wow, interesting. Okay, do you have an unusual blood type? Is that really what's going on?
I don't know. Well, my blood type is O, but maybe it's just like, maybe it's just, I don't know, maybe it's just something different within me that is just like, back away.
Yeah, don't do this.
So I'm listening to my body. I'm not forcing it to make it feel uncomfortable.
Right, which is a great lesson for everyone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then you have like a vinyasa style, which is like maybe the second most popular. Vinyasa is basically movement. So you're moving from one pose to next fairly quickly. So you're kind of like not really in a resting point. You can hold for poses for maybe like 10 seconds or so, but it's mainly like 1, 2, 3,
Oh,
4.
wow.
Kind of like a wave where you're moving from warrior 1 to like something like this, and then
Interesting, because yeah, I think I've done more vinyasa style, but it hasn't been that fast.
Maybe it depends on the teacher. Could depend on the teacher.
Yeah.
But vinyasa styles are fairly quicker.
Mhm.
You might have gone to a beginner's class, and beginner's class are usually a hatha yoga.
Oh.
Hatha yoga is slightly slower than vinyasa, but not as slow as yin yoga. I feel like we should be like writing these like words. We're talking about vinyasa, and then
Right. Oh, yeah, we got it. We got it. There's only 4 so far, so we got it in our heads.
But yeah, hatha yoga is more of like the beginner style where you focus more on your breath. So it's a lot of like you could do like different breath techniques during that class if you have an instructor that enjoys to do that. But or you just do more like stretches per se, like basic stretches. And then you can go down to yin yoga, which is what I teach. Yin yoga, you're really digging deeper into like your hips or your shoulders.
Did I spell? I don't think I spelled vinyasa right.
No, there's only one S, and then hatha is with an A.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was like Hotha, like Hoth, like the planet Hoth in Star Wars. Okay, go ahead.
Yoga in Star Wars. I'm sure they did it.
Yeah, sure.
Before their Jedi fights. But yin yoga, you kind of focus more on one certain part of your body, like your hips, and then your shoulders or like your neck area, or more of like a restorative base. So it's things that really help you lower your heart rate and also just calm you down. So if you have a lot of anxiety, the yin yoga may either trigger it be even more, or for me, I feel like it calms mine down. Sometimes there's poses where your head is facing down a lot, where the blood flows through to your head. So that is going to help you with your circulation more, and also just clear your mind, because you have all these like the little tingles in your body that make you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
And also like I do a lot of running, or like sometimes I'll surf, and I've noticed that doing the yin yoga helps me run a little bit better, or it helps me surf because it helps to unlock the joints more, or unlock the
Yeah.
different muscles in your body when you're feeling extra tight.
How long are you holding each pose?
About 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so usually like in the vinyasa style, you would hold it maybe for, 3 to 5 seconds max, or maybe slightly a little bit longer. But usually after a minute or two, like that's when you'll start feeling the healing benefit. That's when you'll start, like, maybe your thoughts are coming and going a little bit more, or like a certain emotion pops up, or like a memory shows up. And when I'm teaching, I'll usually guide you to maybe think about like a happy thought. And then when we switch over to the next side, I'll make you think of the opposite feeling. So something that made you sad this week, or something that triggered you, and to sit with that emotion and then listen for a message from it. And because you're in a pose, it's not like you're sitting down to meditate, because that can also, it's only one pose. You're not really doing much benefit to your body. But say like, you're in this one pose where it's activating your hip, and then it's also activating your liver, or it's activating your heart or your circulation, then like you can maybe like pass through that emotion a little bit differently, or
Mhm.
something else may come up instead of when you were like sitting down to meditate with your eyes closed.
Are any of the yin yoga poses uncomfortable?
Most of them are.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
most
right. So yeah, so that's one of the things that I really liked about yoga when I really started to realize what was happening. It was that you're having to do these things that are generally uncomfortable. And
Mhm.
at first you want them to be over. You're like,
Yeah.
I can only hold this for so much longer. We got to be moving on, moving on, moving on. Right, right, right. We're moving. And then you don't, and you're continuing to hold it, and you're continuing to hold it. And then you have a decision to make. You
Mhm.
decide whether you're going to go ahead and hold it, or you're going to just give up. And
Yeah.
it's really interesting because when you do decide to go ahead and push through, then there's this moment that you get to where you suddenly go, oh, well, this is easy now. This
Yeah.
isn't actually a challenge anymore.
Mhm.
And I love that because it's proving to you how powerful you are. It's proving to you how you did it. It's like it's an instant success experience. And so if there's any way to get over unworthiness, then that is a great way to push through something that's horribly uncomfortable or even mildly uncomfortable. And then you go, oh, well, I guess I can do it. And then you
Yeah.
can change the narrative about yourself.
Mhm. Yeah, and a lot of it is just like an internal battle, and once you get past it, it feels amazing. I remember the first time I was learning how to do a headstand, and I had this fear of falling, or I learned that I had this fear of falling, because you have to like find your balance to like get on. It's more of like a forearm press. You're not really technically on your head.
Right.
But when I finally like when it finally clicked that I held it for like maybe 5 seconds, um, I realized that it was just my internal talk that was blocking me, of like, I'm telling myself, I can't do this, I can't do this, it's too hard. But then when I finally do it, it's like, whoa, where did this energy come from? Like, it was my worthiness of feeling like, yes, I can. Or my intuition was like, just do it now, like hold it, like keep holding. And it's really your intuition that's telling you to that you can do something, or you can't, or you can't.
Right. Yeah, I'm actually going to equate it to a plant medicine. So when the very first, well, not the very first time, but early on, when I did mushrooms, it was generally very uncomfortable. Like the entire experience for me was not desirable in pretty much any way. I got to see some visuals, but mostly I just wanted it to be over. And so I spent the entire time, at least once or twice, saying, ugh, what did I do this for? Is this going to be over? Is this going to be over?
Mhm.
Please let this be over. And then when it was over, then I had this unbelievable, like, oh, I did it. I made it through. I feel amazing right now. Boy, that was a real challenge. That was a real test. And that's when I went, wait a minute. In that way, mushrooms, I said, it's like a success pill. Like you take this thing because you're going to survive. You're going to make it through. There's no other option. You're not going to die from mushrooms. And when you get through to the end, you go, wow, I did it. And I felt more confident in myself. I felt more accomplished and all kinds of things. So I see them actually fairly similar.
I actually took a little bit yesterday.
Okay.
And it's so true because I was feeling this like off feeling where I'm like, oh, I'm not too motivated. I just don't like, I was getting a lot of anxiety. And then like I opened up my freezer and I had like a little chocolate with mushrooms in it. So I took a few bites of it and then I started painting. I'm like, whoa, like I'm not feeling this unworthiness feeling. I'm not feeling this like mental talk anymore. I feel awesome. And then I went for a swim and I just like felt so connected with the ocean, and I was like laying on the sand, like like looking up at the clouds and like feeling the sun. And I just felt super like grateful for like taking this little mushroom because it helped me like realign me and like make me remember my oneness essentially.
Yeah.
And it's so cool how like just doing that, like obviously like I actually did yoga that day too, and like I guess the yoga just wasn't enough and I just needed that extra dosage of the psychedelic to help.
Right. Okay. So we have a good question, and I think I know the answer to this, but I want you to answer it, of course. How does it differ from Pilates?
So Pilates is more of, I would say it's more of a workout, and it also lacks the spiritual aspect of it, of actually tuning into yourself internally. I don't think any Pilates teacher would actually tell you like, oh, tune into your intentions, or like, what is your body telling you right now, or what emotion is popping up in your head. Pilates is also fast and quick movements. I know they do like lots of sets of 10s or 20s. Like they do a lot of like feet. What are they called? Like I don't even know. I just know it's a lot of
pitter patter of little feet. I don't know.
It's a lot of I think it's a lot more movement, and it's more of like a strength, like a strengthening aspect, versus yoga is more of a flow, like a flow type.
Right. Well, yoga was originally created to help you meditate. Like that was the whole purpose behind yoga originally. Now, I don't know if that's still talked about very often, but I was kind of surprised to learn that when I took some yoga class. I think I was actually taking a different class, and the guy was a yoga teacher, and then he explained that. And I went, oh, wow. Yeah. And then I thought about it. It is easier to meditate after you've done yoga. Like you're more in a peaceful state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's definitely like the energy shift, like like a basic energy shift, because it's just like how you were saying with the psychedelic. You go through this mental talk of like, oh, I want to quit, like why am I doing this? But then after like the 60 minutes or the 30 minutes of yoga that you do, you just feel like awesome. It's an endorphin kick, or it's the other molecules that happen.
Oh yeah. Serotonin.
Serotonin, yeah, that one. I mean, it's even when you work out, you get that feeling too. Like, how many times do you want to go for a run, but instead you're sitting on your couch? But the moment you go and run for a little bit, you feel that worthiness coming back up. Right. So it doesn't even have to be yoga. Like, a lot of people don't like yoga, and I'm totally cool with it. But it's also a form of stretching, and I think your body does need to stretch. So if you're turned off by yoga, just call it stretching, and it's kind of the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
In yoga, I literally just call it stretch. It's like stretching for a longer period of time with like me telling you about your chakras and like telling you to get past your emotion.
Right. That's great. So you're tricking your mind by using different language. I like that.
Well, I actually get a lot of like first comers, or a lot of my friends just don't do yoga, and like most people are turned off by it because it's so spiritual, or it has like this weird perception about it now. So I'm mainly trying to change your perception about it and just tell you why it makes me feel good and why I continue to do it. I don't think I've ever really done yoga as a spiritual practice, or like I wanted to get in tune more with more of myself. I just liked it because it made me feel good, and I tend to like to do stuff that make my body feel good.
Right. Well, yeah, the whole thing, we're in these bodies. We're spirit people. We're spirit entities. We have these physical bodies, and we have this energetic field. So if you just focus on one, as opposed to all three, then you're gonna only get so far. So yoga is a great way to allow yourself to focus on the body.
Mm-hmm. We got another question. Lisa says, I do Saha
Saha.
meditation.
Saha.
It is chakra clearing and opening meditation, but it does not involve much movement. So I guess that's very similar to what I do with yin yoga, because yin yoga in an hour, because I teach 30-minute classes on my YouTube or 20-minute classes, so we'll only go through maybe like four or five poses. So it's not much movement either. And then you can use blocks or like a bolster, pillows. There's tons of different like props that you can use to help you, like say like you're not that flexible. I would guide you to put like a pillow under that area to help you sink more into the ground, because the whole point of yin yoga is to bring your energy not energy down, but to bring your body more down so you feel more grounded. And by using those blocks or props can help open your body more to be more flexible. I think yin yoga is good if you're trying to improve your flexibility, because you're holding it for a while, and if you do it more consistently, you'll be able to become more flexible. Now, granted, I can't even do the splits. I'm not that flexible either. So in my videos, like, you'll see that I am not like a crazy flexible person like the other yoga people in the world. But I feel like that can help you motivate you that anyone can do this, because clearly I'm doing it for so many years and I haven't gotten much, but like, it's obviously still helping me to just be more open. And I think it's more about opening your mind, or just opening up your perception and just tuning into your surroundings, which helps you become into the present state, and also to remember your oneness, your one true self.
Yeah. And I think that, you being not like the super amazing expert that can do things that nobody else can do makes you more inviting. Now people are going to go, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to feel like crap if I watch her because she can just do all this crazy stuff that most humans can't. Oh, you're an actual real human too? Okay, well, I'm going to watch you and I'm going to see how close I can get to you, as opposed to not knowing for sure I'm never going to get to the other person.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I watch this one girl and she's like crazy flexible, and I'm just like almost like judging myself, like, why aren't I that flexible? Why haven't I gotten there yet? Or like, it kind of like turns me off from like wanting to do more yoga because I can't do what she's doing.
Yeah.
But then that's my own like worthiness that I have to work with. And then that kind of, when I continue to watch her, then I'm like, okay, well, just accept where my body is now. I need to accept myself and know that where I'm at is exactly perfect, or exactly where I need to be.
Yeah. Acceptance. The best. That's the best higher vibrational emotion, because it's the lowest one, right? But it's also very it's probably one of the easier ones to get to just go, okay, I don't have to judge this. I can accept this. This is just the reality. I'm good with it. And that's a higher vibrational emotion than going, oh, I wish I could do this, or I'm not good enough, or etc.
So you said that's the lowest one. So what are your other tiers that you have?
So the lowest high vibrational emotion is acceptance. The next one up is like optimism or positive expectation or positive thought. The next one up is excitement and enthusiasm, then gratitude, then unconditional love.
So did you make this up, or is this like a common thing?
Yeah, it's a common thing. Oh man, I'm gonna forget the guy's name because but it's called the Map of Consciousness by David R. Hawkins. He did experiments where he measured the vibration of a person while they were experiencing different emotions. And so he created this, scientific chart that shows where everything is. And so, as you go down the chart then into the lower vibrational emotions, it goes on and on with frustration. Desire is actually a lower vibrational emotion, but it's the highest vibrational, lower vibrational emotion. So acceptance and desire are really close together to each other, but it's very cool because they're actually opposites. If you have desire for something, then you don't have acceptance. And if you have acceptance, then you don't have any desires.
So let's talk. So explain the tiers again one more time. You have acceptance, and then you
So it
have
starts with acceptance, and then it's like positive belief or optimism,
uh-huh.
then excitement, enthusiasm, then gratitude, then unconditional love.
Okay. So out of those, which one is the hardest for you personally
The
to?
hardest for me, none of them. uh,
Okay, Mr.
really, I mean, really, it's really not. I I suppose gratitude, I guess, but I spend most of my time in excitement.
Okay.
So what I talk about for people too is to figure out where they default to,
Mhm.
because when everything's equal and there's nothing special going on and you're whatever, where are you on the chart? Are you in frustration? Are you in disappointment? Are you in unworthiness? Or are you in acceptance? Or are you in excitement? And what my goal is when I'm working with people is to figure out a way to help them move up the chart with their default emotion, because I'm going to have frustration. Everyone's going to have frustration. We're going to have fear. We're going to have anxiety. All these things are possible, but we shouldn't beat ourselves up over having them. We're supposed to. But the suffering begins when you spend too much time on one. If you spend weeks being frustrated, now you're kind of in a suffering sort of situation.
Mhm.
So the idea of all emotions is to give you feedback on the situation that you're experiencing so that you can make an adjustment.
Mhm.
And it kind of goes wrong if you continue to feel the same emotion no matter what the circumstances are. That means you're not responding properly to your environment, which again, in a survival sort of situation, would actually be a deadly combination. You need to be able to respond correctly to all external stimuli. And when you're not, then that's where we have suffering, or that's where we have an issue.
Oh, it's good. Yeah, I like that. So then with tying into yoga, with how I do my yoga to help me with my unworthiness or with my problems, is there something that you do that helps you, get realigned?
Well, yes. I mean, it's really, you have to approach it from multiple directions, because, thoughts, emotions are similar to each other, but different in many ways. So like thinking is quick. You can quickly change a thought. You can think about how uh, what the rain smells like right now. And now maybe you're not thinking about how unworthy you are. You're actually focused on what the rain smells like.
Mhm.
So that's really fast and fairly easy. It's just like breathing. We
Mhm.
can control our breath if we want to. We can make it faster or slower or whatever. Or we can just let it go and then it'll take care of itself. If we're not consciously thinking about breathing, then we're breathing, right? Same
Mhm.
thing is true of thinking. If you're not consciously thinking about thinking, you're still thinking, but you're probably not really in control, right? So whatever default thoughts are just going to start happening. And if those default thoughts are thoughts of unworthiness,
Mhm.
then now what happens is you deliver a message to your emotional system. Your emotional system says, how should we feel? What are the stimuli? What's going on? Oh, we're thinking about how unworthy we are. Oh, okay. Well, then that must be the emotion we need to feel. So we start tuning in to the frequency of unworthiness. And then whatever is associated with that physiological response is what you start to experience. Maybe you feel heaviness or weight on your shoulders or whatever the physiological response is.
Mhm.
So if you can start to think about the opposite emotion, then you can start to convince your emotional body what you should tune into. So
Mhm.
I teach people to walk up the chart, I say. So first you go into acceptance, because that's the lowest vibrational one, high vibrational item. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. I can accept my unworthiness. I can be okay with the fact that I feel unworthy. It's natural. It's normal. We humans do it all the time. It's part of the process. Then you can move up and be optimistic. Okay, the next one on the chart, right? I can have optimism that this won't last forever, that there's probably some good benefit from me experiencing this right now. I don't know maybe what it is yet, but I know I'll eventually figure it out. And then you can continue to walk up the chart. So that will pull along the emotional side eventually. Again, emotions are slower, and thoughts are very fast. So the other thing that I do is to help them with the emotional side is I do the activations. So I can retune your body so that you're tuning into a different version or a better version of any emotion. And so on the video that I just released today, there's an activation that will reduce the negative signature associated with unworthiness. And I really made this video because there was somebody in my class who was having this issue. And usually I tell the people in my class, hey, if you have an activation that you want, let me know and we'll do it and we'll try it out. Maybe I've never done an activation like that before. And you can be my test subjects, right? And so this lady said, yeah, I feel this horrible feeling of unworthiness. And she said at the moment, she was like, I'm feeling like suicidal thoughts actually right now. And so I just quickly made a recording of that and I sent it to her. And she listened to it and she said within seconds, she said it was almost immediate. She went from having these suicidal thoughts to giggling with laughter, and it was just resolved. So that's like the other method. And so what happens when you're tuning in to an emotion, when we do the activation, we help you tune into a different version of it. And then the more that you do the activation, the easier and easier it is for you to tune in to that more positive version of that emotion, not carrying with it all the dread and all the physiological experience. So that's the long answer to your question. What do I do for people? Get them to think differently and give them the energetic experience. And then hopefully the combination of those two will bring them very far along.
And I like how in the beginning, how you mentioned how you go through the opposite of emotions, where you start with one and you find its opposite. It's very similar to how I teach my yoga, because you got to balance the right side with the left side. So when you hold one pose for 3 to 5 minutes on one side, I'll tell you to, okay, think about what made you frustrated this week. And we'll literally sit with that for 3 or 5 minutes. And you can't get away from that thought because I'm making you just tune in that energy to reflect on how did your body react. Like, were you, clenching your stomach when you had this argument, or was your heart rate racing? Were you sweating? And then when we turn to the other side, we look at the opposite one and then see how your body feels. And then you go back and forth between the two until you realize that they're, one and the same. I also teach a meditation called Yoga Nidra, Iris, and it's very similar, where you go back and forth between the two emotions until you realize they're very similar. I recently started teaching more of that, and the more because this one's more copyrighted, so there's a script that I say. At the very end, it's very similar to the energy that I felt from ayahuasca or any psychedelic that I do. So there is definitely a linkage between yoga, meditation, and psychedelics, because there's that energy that comes through, which is, your oneness, or your return to remembering your that your higher self, or God, or oneness, or whoever you call your source.
Yeah, that's really cool. And and Yoga Nidra, you just mentioned that, right? I wanted to make sure I heard you right. And that one's a little bit more of like almost like a meditation, isn't it? It's not even poses at all. Am I right?
Is all meditation. So you're really just laying down for it's about a 35-minute practice. Sometimes they go a little bit longer. And the goal of it is kind of to get into that half asleep, half awake state, so that way you're in your trance.
Right.
A lot of people fall asleep on it, but that's totally okay. I fall asleep during most of it too. It just means that your body is tired, but the benefits of it is incredible. Like, it's equivalent to 4 hours of sleep. So I call it the power nap meditation.
Wow.
And then it's also about, like, it helps you lower your heart rate, gets you back into your resting state. So like when you wake up from it, you just feel this like deep like sense of relaxation or this calmness. It's like waking up from a deep sleep as well.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're talking about the hypnagogic state where you're in that half awake, half asleep. And I've experienced that before, and it kind of feels like I'm also able to hear other people's conversations who aren't even present, right?
Yeah.
Like tuning in to different,
Yeah, like
frequencies.
the different elements around or whatever is around.
And
But I
so
think
oh, go ahead.
it's just more of like just reaching your I think it's your consciousness state where you just feel, you know, your subconscious and your conscious, and that will just like merge together.
Right. Well, okay. So when you do yoga nidra, to
Mhm.
get 4 hours worth of sleep, how long is your yoga nidra session need to be?
Only about 30 minutes,
Okay.
35 minutes average, yeah. So I used to teach a class where I would do, like 20 minutes to 30 minutes of yin yoga, and then the remaining was the nidra part.
Oh,
So
I
it's the yoga would first help you calm you down some more, and then you get to be in this long it's called savasana, of, like, laying on your back.
yeah, I remember that term. Yeah.
Savasana.
Vipassana. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I remember a couple things.
It's not bad.
Yeah, yeah, and I enjoy yoga. I mean, it's one of those things that, like you were saying, I don't want to go do it, but once I'm doing it, I'm happy about it. Or and especially when it's over, because I not only do I not have to do it anymore, but I feel great as a result. But I have this, just like I'm sure many people, this kind of like, I don't really want to do that right now. I would rather, have a snack or do something, just about anything else. But it is one of those things that if you can make it through that desire, then you can really receive amazing benefits.
Yeah, I mean, there's days where or, like, weeks where I just don't do it and where I forget to do my yoga, or I think there one time was, like, a month or 2 months where I just didn't do it. I didn't have time or just kept forgetting or just kept making excuses, but then when I finally got back on my mat and started doing these poses, I'm like, "Oh my god, like, why did I keep forget?" Like, it just feels so good to, like, just release all these, like, tensions in my legs or in my shoulders, and it's incredible how, like, instantly you'll feel the results of it or the benefits from doing it. Even just one pose like, just pretty cool. I mean, I don't know any workout that does that for you, where you just feel like an instant, like, energy shift.
Yeah. Yeah. Do jumping jacks, just do a bunch of jumping jacks and you'll just feel a whole heck of a lot better.
Mhm. Yeah,
No,
not really.
no. Right. That's
So
cool.
do you ever feel that so just linking back to, like, injuries, because 'cause we're talking about, like, "Oh, I don't wanna do this," or "I don't wanna do that." Um, did you ever experience like, a sports injury or anything that maybe, because you were thinking something that resulted into an injury?
Oh, no, every sports injury I can think of was, like, very surprising to me. Like, I thought I was invincible. Like, why did this happen? I'm confused. So no, what do you mean? Like, give me an example.
Um, I mean, I have so many.
Okay.
So
Pick one.
well, one of mine was my biggest surf accident that I had was with, my ankle, where at the time, like, my boyfriend was cheating on me and, like, I was feeling unworthy, so when I went to go paddle out without him, like, I was like, "Oh, he's probably cheating on me, like, I'm mad right now." And before I even got to, like, the break to go catch a wave, like, I got my injury happened, like, someone crashed into me. And so it's like, well, was it my thoughts that triggered this injury, or was it this feeling of unworthiness that was like, okay, well, you're feeling this unworthiness, so let's like give you another lesson that's gonna last for you for 3.5 years for you to like deal with this unworthiness, because it wasn't until this injury finished that my unworthiness or that emotion that I had with my ex like finally released. So
Amazing.
that's just like my linkage with some injuries or with that feeling of unworthiness of
Right.
actually playing a big role in your body.
Right. Yeah. So it seems like it was a manifestation essentially
Mm, maybe,
without you even realizing it.
maybe, yeah. Or just how to hold on to that feeling of unworthiness in a way.
Okay. So let's say, I mean, we don't usually want to do this, but because you're second guessing yourself. But if you could go back in time to that moment, how would you do it differently now? What did you learn, I suppose?
It's a great question. Well, I guess it would be to leave the guy before when I had the signs in the beginning. That would be the thing that I
Right.
would, yeah.
And you can do that in this case now because you don't have those feelings of unworthiness. You
Mhm.
do have more self-respect. And so you're going to say, my self-care says, no, I'm not going to put myself through this any further.
Yeah. I mean, now when I meet someone or the little flings that I just had, I just leave because I know that I'm much more worthy than the way that this person is treating me. So
Right.
it's like now, I mean, obviously I've grown from that experience. So I feel like I needed that experience in order to be the way that I act right now.
Right. Yeah. And so that's why I was kind of like hesitant to ask it in that way, because we always need every situation and we don't need to go back and say, man, if I'd have just done this differently then, because now you're residing in a place of judgment over your past self and on and on. But
Mhm.
I still liked it from the perspective of what was the lesson that you got out of it. And that
It's
works.
all part of just acceptance. So whatever injury or whatever your body is going through, it's just fully accepting it, and then you move forward or you raise your vibration from the situation.
Right, because you could look at it and say, "Oh, well, why did this happen to me? And why?" And instead, acceptance is, well, it probably happened to me for some reason. And I'm a simple, limited 3D human. And so I'm not going to put a whole bunch of pressure on myself to try to figure it out. I'm just going to allow it, accept it. And I bet you that eventually the answer or the reason will become I will become aware of it just enough so that I can learn the lesson that I was supposed to get out of the experience.
Mhm. Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
All right.
That's
Well,
yoga for you in, in just 50 minutes.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we've only got like 9 minutes left. All right. So is there anything else that we should talk about related to this, or is there anything that you want to like promote or talk about that you've got going on? Because we talked about the Higher Self Expo.
Right. Well, with me, it's like you have my yoga on my YouTube that you can tune into, which I try to do regularly now for like once a week. But mainly my passion is for painting. So it's just tuning my body in when I'm painting. So if you do like to enjoy looking at art, feel free to look at my Instagram. It's Island Awakening. You'll see the journey from how a painting started to how it's looking now. So that's the main.
I bet you've got a corollary to doing yoga and painting at the same time. I mean, not no. I'm not that you're doing yoga while you're painting, but there's probably a mindset similar.
Mm. Yeah, there could be. There no, it's definitely the same trance because I link that feeling when I'm painting is the same after I finish a meditation or get into like that meditative state where I can feel that I'm talking with my guides, like the Andromedans or whoever is around. And I'm actually calling those people in while I'm painting to for them to show me a different way or to teach me something. So it's definitely is the whole everything that I do kind of links into practicing yoga or practicing meditation and remembering my oneness.
Right. Yeah, getting into that flow state.
Exactly, the flow state. Because when I'm painting, it's the same feeling like when I'm surfing or when I'm out in nature. All of that, at least now as I'm painting more, I'm realizing like that your flow state is really your conversations with God or your conversations with your source. And it could be anything that you do. It could be cooking, it could be cleaning, it could be,
Mhm.
watering your plants or playing with your cat or your dog.
Yep.
And once you're in that state, I feel like you're also able to listen to your body to be like, oh, my body wants some more water. My
Right.
body wants to eat fish today or go vegan or something like that. And I think like in that flow state, like you're really able to tap into your frequency of what you need to do for the next moment.
Right. Yeah. I was remembering we had a Brazilian foreign exchange student stay with us for 6 months when I was a senior in high school. And we
Hmm.
had a ping pong table in our basement. And so he and I would go down there. and we could just go infinitely. Like, you know, we weren't trying to beat each other. We were just trying to keep it going. Right. And so we would just be, you know, dinka-donka, dinka-donka, dinka-donka. And then pretty soon we're just talking about things. We're just having a regular old conversation while dinka-donka, dinka-donka, or we'd go off into our own thoughts and be in a meditative state. We were truly in a flow state without even having to put any cognition into our movements.
Yeah. That's why I feel like I'm a little bit turned off by some of the yoga community, because like it feels like sometimes they feel like they're better than everybody else.
Sure.
But really, like, anyone can get into this state. Like, anyone can get into their own flow. They've just like made it a little bit like a little title of like, hey, like you can feel this when you do this. But like, I feel like if you just tap into your passions or tap into what you truly love, you're able to really reconnect with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we would eventually remove the net. And so now we're really, it's like the ball is like this far off the surface of the table. And then it was a table that was split in half. So we scooted the one half of the table back. So we were going over a big gap as we were playing. I don't know why. I'm just remembering this now. So I'm enjoying talking about it. But it was really fun it was like making up our own version of ping pong. And again,
we're moving into your excitement tier.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. I love this tier. This is my favorite tier. Like, I love getting excited about things and then talking about the things that make me excited, because I do feel, I hope that those who are listening can feel that, right? And then they can kind of get into it a little bit too, even though they're like, ping pong and pulling the table apart. What's he freaking talking about? What does this have to do with anything? Doesn't matter. Like, we're here to tune into different emotional frequencies. And that's why I think that we are empaths, so that we can tune into as many frequencies as possible, not just our own. So there you go. I am providing a service. I am providing the excitement, emotional frequency for you to tune into.
I think I found what we always need to link back to in our podcast, which is your excitement.
yeah. You see it all like lighting up, right?
Like, literally glowing right now.
Yeah.
I figured it out. Yeah. Just talk about his joy. Talk about his childhood and playing ping pong.
Right. That won't work the next time. I want, we have to move on to a different topic, but yeah.
Sure. Your next little phase of whatever sport you played.
Right. Yeah. Or whatever it is. It's not just sports. It's all kinds of things. Yeah.
Awesome. So you have anything going on this week? You have the Higher Self Expo next week, or what?
Yeah, it's not this Saturday, it's the following Saturday. So I have more interviews. I pretty much have one a day until Tuesday next week, I think. So, some really great speakers this time. I'm super excited about it.
Good. Yeah, I'm excited too. I'll mark it in my calendar.
Yeah. Since it's free, you can come to it.
Exactly. Since it's free, I like free things, but I do blow some money on quite a bit of stuff too. When I feel worthy of the investment.
Right. That's good.
I think it's a good quality though. Do you think that there's a linkage to resistance in buying things from feeling worthy and unworthy?
Oh, sure. There has to be. Yeah, because when do people buy things? Well, okay, and I can think of both situations, right? Like, I deserve a reward, and so I just did something amazing, so I should treat myself. That's a very real reason that people buy things. But then there's the opposite, which is I'm depressed, I'm miserable, and maybe if I buy this thing, it'll make me feel better. And it maybe does for 5 minutes, and then you go right back to your default, which is why I talk about that default all the time. Like, we need to move your default from depression or from frustration or whatever, so that you're in a higher one, so that no matter what's happening in your life, you won't resort to tactics to try to make yourself temporarily feel better.
Whenever I actually get that a lot, where I'll buy something to make me feel better, whether it's like ice cream or like another Amazon order. But now I'm actually like stopping myself. I'm like, okay, I'm aware that I want to buy this, but do I really need this? Like, is this actually going to make me happy or benefit me in a certain way?
Right.
And I've actually stopped a lot of orders because of that.
Yeah. Well, try living in a van and where you can't have anything. Then it's really easy to not buy stuff, because you know that if you buy something, you have to get rid of something else because you have no more room.
Room for it.
Yeah.
Really prioritize what.
That was quite the interesting process. I definitely enjoyed like figuring out what I'm actually going to keep and what I'm actually going to use. And I think that every time I stop for a few months in a place like I am right now, I'm going to be like doing it again. I'm going to be purging of the, okay, this is what I haven't been using. This is what I would like to have. And so it changes every time I think I get back on the road.
And it feels really good too to get rid of things, or
Oh,
like
yeah.
if you're feeling stuck or something, you should just try like decluttering your closet, and that should help release some emotions, even if it's just reorganizing things. Because sometimes I'll like have the intention to like get rid of stuff, but then I'll realize like, wait, I don't have too much. I just needed to fold
Yeah.
it properly.
Right. Yeah. Make it so that it's not a ridiculous mess in here. Yeah, totally. All right. Well, it has been 1 hour, and it's been, as always, an incredible pleasure to have our 1 hour conversation for everyone to listen in on.
Yes, thank you everybody that has tuned in. Be sure to make a comment. If you'd like to like this video, share it with your friends. And we're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as a replay.
Excellent. All right. Well, I will see you next week, my dear. Have a wonderful time.
You too. Aloha.
Bye, everybody.